have been a storyteller for 47 years. And I began quite by accident one afternoon in Central Park. And I was directing a group of children, of actors and actresses in New York City in a performance, and I knew nothing about theater, so I had them enact fairy tales and create poems. And it was so delightful that their parents, who were famous actors and actresses, said they should do it again. And the kids said, Laura, you have to do something. And I have never memorized or been able to memorize anything in my life. And I, of course, didn't have any monologues or anything else. I had been in the theater for actually 2 months, but discovered that I was the only person who didn't make any money after this amazing performance that I was in off-Broadway. So my director said, you should work with kids. This was the time in the theater when there was a desire to break down the fourth wall. And when I got up in front of this 100 people in Central Park, in front of the Anderson statue, which now I direct every summer with 4 months of storytelling, and this was over 47 years ago, I began telling a Romanian fairy tale that my mother told to me as a child. And what happened between myself and the audience was so extraordinary, it broke down the fourth wall. I felt that we were in some sacred, collaborative space, and I wanted to know what that was. So I dropped out of graduate school and I took a detour, which I have been on for 47 years. We all know that when you tell your story, when you hear a story told, that suddenly we come alive. It is an act of repair and regeneration. It is medicine. And over these years, I have performed in many countries. I have done projects for so many different people. I've trained trainers. But as Lily mentioned, there's something about the ruin and the dark that inspires me to go deeper. And so in 2010, after the earthquake, I went to Haiti to work for an organization. And I worked with Haitian health workers, women who had grown up hearing stories. And it was one of those women who jumped in a tent in this devastated ruin after the earthquake and started telling a story about her own life, inspired by what happened between myself and the mothers and children in this tent. And then she looked at me and she said, I never knew what words are. I am a magician of grass. In the back of that tent, there were a group of adolescent girls. I knew that 2 of them had attempted suicide, that 4 of them had been raped, and they sat close and huddled together. And I decided that I was going to raise money, come back, and teach those girls to tell stories and write poetry. And it became a project that has lasted almost 5 years and continues today. The girls were thrilled to write. They wrote daily. They worked together. But it was always a kind of flooding of emotion, but never talking about their lives really, until one afternoon, and that's the story I'm going to tell you about. And then I'm going to show you a film of those girls who are now working on a book and have become mentors for other girls' groups in Haiti. And they're astonishing. They literally wrote and told their stories, made poetry, and they took themselves out of misery and out of hopelessness through expression and mutual support. I took them out of the camp. They wanted to go, and this was a camp of 145 families. It was a kind of devolving situation. The tents were sort of makeshift. Every time it rained, if you had a baby, you stood up the whole night with your baby. In the morning, you rebuilt your tent. There was no privacy. It was filthy. It was a time of cholera. But the girls hadn't been out of the camp, and they wanted to go. So I took them to the countryside. And we had an amazing day. They danced, they played sports, they read their poetry, they sang, they ate 4 times in one afternoon. The next day was my last day there for that visit. I tried to go back every 2 or 3 months. I just raised money from friends, basically. And I went into the camp, and I expected they would be so excited that we would write about our day. It took them an hour and a half to come to the tent. And when they did, they sat in a kind of apathy and disconnection worse than any high school or junior high school I have been in the inner city anywhere in this country. It's just like that, you know. And suddenly it struck me that they hadn't felt the contrast between being in the tent, living under the tent, and outside where some life was going on. And actually, my friend Kay Olin, who's here, is a great Mohawk storyteller, said, like, how do you come up with these ideas? And I said, it's pure trust and inspiration. It's out of a broken heart. It's out of not knowing what to do and looking and listening to others and asking questions. So I made the girls stand up, and I sent them out into the camp with an assignment. They should find something that they hate, something they detest, something they think is completely and utterly revolting, and look at it, and then walk around and look at it again, and walk around and look at it again. They came back after 2 seconds. I said, that's not long enough. Sent them out again. Finally, they came back in. I said, I want you to write about what you hate. I want you to write the poem of your life of what you hate. And then each girl stood up and read it, and in call and response, everybody recited back what they said. So they were moved from self-preoccupation into a communal chant of call and response. And what was so hideous, what was so authentically felt, suddenly was the source of celebration. And when that was finished, and it took hours, I sent them out to find something they love in the camp, which was harder, regardless of how small or how vast, including the sky, and look at it. And we did the same thing. And they came alive like withered flowers. They were the magicians of grass in every great story in the world, every creation story. It is the grass that appears after the fire, after the earthquake, that has the power, the fuse, the energy to take its roots and go down into the earth and lift back up the life force that's untarnishable, that's always there, that you have spoken about, that everyone has spoken about. And then they danced. And after that, they went from being girls who just expressed themselves endlessly to being writers. And then they began to tell their story once they had felt into the darkness of where they were and confronted their situation. Then they started to write. And what they have said is that writing and telling stories and making images and hearing each other has made them alive again. Now, I feel a little bit like Lily. I don't do anything spectacular, but I trust language, not prepackaged platitudes or sound bites, but the power of the spoken word that moves in space between us, where we become everyone's story. It is the ultimate act of peace. And these girls today actually went for the first time to a literary festival to hear great writers and to discover how to write a book about their lives, which they said would be for all the girls in Haiti. And if you look at that country and you look at the devastation, what strikes me about those girls is that from inside of them, they have created beauty. And that's the alchemy of change. Because this is the one project where I wasn't there for 4 months or 1 year, where no matter how long it has taken, I'm committed to stay with these girls until they become the advocates out of the deepest place of themselves for creativity and change and goodness. And I want to show you a 3-minute film about them. You can turn it off. We don't need to see this. I don't think we have any idea what it's like when we are there for somebody and willing to listen to their story. This is just one small gathering of girls who I feel are the future of Haiti. Thank you very much.